Welcome back to the You Can Too podcast. On today's show, we have Rajeev Kapur on the show. He has 3 multi-million-dollar exits. He's built successful teams and business units in China, India, Switzerland, Singapore, the Southeast Asian market. He is a CEO of 1105 Media, a B2B marketing and events company, which is his third company at that. He's worked closely with the CEO of Dell, and he has a master's from USC. I can go on and on about his accomplishments, truly, but I'm excited to talk about this book here that we have, Chase Greatness. Rajeev, for those who may not be aware of who you are, can you give us a brief overview?
Well, James, first of all, thanks for that introduction, and I appreciate it. And it's a pleasure to be on with you. You know, it's great. I know you said it's snowing up where you are. I'm in beautiful Southern California right now. But first of all, I want to thank you and the listeners for taking the time to listen in. I know they could probably be doing better things for their time, so I really appreciate and have gratitude for them listening. Look, I mean, who am I? I mean, it's a kind of a little bit of a loaded question. I'll be honest with you. I'm just a guy who's out there trying to make a difference, to be honest. At the end of the day, sure, you listed out some of my accomplishments. Those are great. But behind all those accomplishments were great teams, great people, great support, great mentors who I'm fully grateful for. And I just felt like, when COVID hit, there was an opportunity to find a way to give back and find ways to change the world. And, I wanted to take my skill set and what I've been able to learn over the years of being a leader and having these exits and building these businesses and having a wide range of experiences, and do what I can to help the future, because I think there's a major disruption coming in the next 24 months, and I don't think leadership right now, Gen X and Boomer leadership, is up to speed with that, which I'm sure we're going to talk about more here soon. So that's kind of who I am. Apart from that, you're in New York. I'm a big Laker fan. I got Kobe there above me, and I've got a couple of amazing kids, married, and have an amazing dog, and enjoy life.
Absolutely. I know that you wrote the book in the beginning of 2020. I think it took about 18 months to write. So you definitely had a lot in the backlog. I have a client that's took her multiple years to write her book. So I'm curious what really pushed you into writing the book to begin with, and how you approach such a big project.
Great question. So when COVID hit, everybody's work. Everybody, all of a sudden, you got to go work from home, and it was a pretty big impact on my business, because at the time, about 55% of my business was face-to-face events. So imagine you're going 100 miles an hour and you hit this wall called COVID, and overnight, I'm not talking like sometimes businesses decline over a couple of years or whatever it might be, right? Imagine within literally a 24-hour window where your entire business, or over half your business, stops on a dime, right? And when that happened, it was a huge impact. And there was no mentor for me to call. There was no case study for me to go read, because this never happened before, right? And there's probably a 24 to 48-hour window there where you have a little bit of imposter syndrome. You're like, why am I here? Like, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be really lead this team through what this is? Because I don't know what to do. No one knows what to do, right? And if they did, they're full of shit. And no one knew what to do. And so, but after about a 24 to 40-hour window of just kind of like sitting there feeling down on myself and having a little bit of a pity party, you wake up and you put on your big boy pants. You say, all right, let's go figure it out. And you're right. There are no case studies written about this. Maybe in 20 years, they're going to write case studies about what we're going to do. So that was the attitude I took. And so that's what I decided to do in the business. Now, that was the business front. On the personal front, I started to get really stressed out, right? I wasn't sleeping. It was a real challenge. And what do they tell you when you get on an airplane? In case of turbulence, masks are going to fall from the ceiling, right? They tell you to put your own mask on first. Mm-hmm. Well, writing this book was my ability to put my own mask on first. So that's why I wrote the book. And I had kind of the rumblings of the book, or the ideas for the book in my head for a while. I had notes kind of everywhere. But finally when COVID hit, I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, because I needed something to do with my time when I wasn't, and I needed to be able to carve that out. I needed to focus on my health. I needed to focus on writing the book, my mental wellness, my physical wellness, and I needed to figure out how to become more than just be that CEO working 18 hours a day kind of a person. And so that's what I did. And COVID allowed me to do that.
Yeah. And I think that COVID really opened up so much for so many people. Like, I started my business in the beginning of COVID. I think it just pushed us to either fall back or really take a giant step forward. And it seems like you were able to adapt. And this kind of brings me into something that was at the beginning of your book. And it's one of my favorite quotes, actually, is the most important factor in survival is neither intelligence nor strength, but adaptability. Did you doing this in the beginning of COVID really have an impact on that being the first quote of the book and really kind of leading into what the book was going to become?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think Elon Musk said right there. There's plenty of people who are graduates who have MBAs and PhDs, or a bunch of who are not that smart. But the skill that I think that was most important back then, that I think is really important now, if not more, especially with new technology like ChatGPT coming out and DALL-E and all these different things, is your ability to adapt, your ability to improvise, your ability to overcome. You have to be able to do that. If you're unwilling to adapt, if you're unwilling to change, you're going to get left behind. You're going to fail. And I don't want you to fail. And I think where we are right now with that Gen Z millennial group, that population, you guys are going to be the forefront of having to fix all this nonsense that's been created ahead of you. And I think you guys are going to be up for the task. I am a firm believer. Like, people say that the World War II generation, that generation was the world's greatest generation, and I firmly believe that what they had to do was amazing. But I'll tell you, I think when it's all said and done, the whole millennial Gen Z generation may be right up there, given all the challenges that this group is going to face, from climate change, social justice reform, you name it, right? And so I think having that adaptability is going to be critical. That's why it's the first quote in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, through three different exits, through working with like very, very high up in Dell, and then doing your own company and doing all the things that you've done, what do you think has led to you being able to have that leadership and you being able to adapt so quickly, especially when it's happening so quick, as you said? I mean, it happened overnight. How were you able to really adapt to that? Like, what can you say really, really brought you that ability to do so?
Yeah, look, I think early on, I put a premium on trying to build team culture. And, if you look at, and I mentioned in the book, and if you look at the research, right, Deloitte, the big accounting firm, did a research study that said 90% of CEOs believe culture is important, but only 10% ever do anything about it, right? And to me, I spend a lot of time on culture. And what that looks like to me is I put a premium on the fact that my employees are my internal customer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of people do that. So people think about their external customer, right? So if you're retail, you think about the person walking in the door, right? If you're working for Dell, you think about maybe selling computers to, I don't know, to some organization in New York, in Wall Street, whatever it might be, right? So you think about the external customers who's buying from you, right? But I'm here to tell you that your internal customer as a leader is more important, right? Because the more you can focus on your internal customer, the more you can give them the tools to do their job, the more that you can provide an amazing work experience for them. You're gonna have less turnover. You're gonna have greater adaptability. You're gonna have more innovation, and you're gonna have people who are really going to do what they can to take care of the external customer. So I think it starts with the internal customer first. To me, there's no chicken and egg. To me, it's take care of your internal customer first, then your external customer will come through. And so, and I think that's true. So, and I think that's how I think what's allowed me to be, knock on wood, successful to where I am today, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people that you work with are going to be the most important thing. If without them, I mean, you have nothing else, right? So you being able to do that is the same reason that while the Great Resignation is happening, you probably haven't been too affected by it because you put that first, and that's a big value of yours. Let's seemingly saying that most of my audience isn't in a leadership position, say in corporate or wherever it may be. Most people are looking for those 3 steps to success or those 3 steps to becoming the best leader. I'm curious what you think have allowed you to become the leader that you are today, and like what has been incorporated in for you becoming that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, look, I don't know if I could say there's 3 steps per se.
Right.
But I think some of the things that you've heard from others, I'm sure, on this show have been like, be the first one to work in the morning and be the last person to leave. And I think that those are all kind of foundational truths. You want to be able to do those kinds of things, right? But to me, is you always want to be the hardest worker in the room. You don't need to be the smart. I don't want you to be the smartest person in the room, because when you're the smartest person in the room, it's going to be time to change the room. I want you to be the hardest worker in the room. But I think more than anything, I think if you want to get ahead in your career and you're in your 20s, I will tell you this. I'm going to give you a piece of advice that I don't think anybody's ever given you, which is I want you to go find the hardest most difficult task in the organization that you work at, and I want you to volunteer to fix it. Right? That's kind of what happened to me, and I write about it in the book. Right? Back in 2000, I was running the West Coast for Dell, and it was about $1 billion business. Right? It's huge. And I was going to have a call with Michael, and I was excited. I'm like, oh wow, I'm going to get this promotion. I'm excited. Oh, it's cool. It's awesome, right? And sure enough, I get on the call, and he says, Rajeev, I'm sending you to China. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You're doing what? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, what? Why are you sending me to China? Are you crazy? It's like sending the, it's like, you hear the story of the military guy who does something wrong and sends him to Siberia kind of a thing, right? I'm like, wow, what did I do wrong? I must have really pissed somebody off in this whole process. He said, are you done talking? I go, yeah. He goes, look, one of the things he learned from one of his mentors is that what you do is you don't want to take your best people and stick them on something that's already doing well. You want to take your best people and have them go solve and fix and find ways to grow the most hardest thing in the company, or the area that needs to be successful the most for the future. In this case, China was really important for Dell's overall growth for the next 10, 20 years, and it's done really well. And so I went, and then after that, a few other people came and have come, and it's been great. But to me, I tell people, raise your hand, find out the most difficult thing in the company, and go do it. Go tackle it. And here's the thing. Chances are you're going to be successful. Chances are you're going to find a way, you're going to find a solution. But even if you don't, they're going to remember you for raising your hand to try. Right? So that's the biggest piece of advice I can give your listeners right now. If you're working in a 9-to-5 job, and you're looking to get ahead, raise your hand, volunteer for the hardest thing possible. I had a conversation with, I can't tell you the name of the company, but I had a conversation with an executive at a major streamer, right? And I was talking to this executive, and he's he's like a mid-level, he's kind of like a director level type of person. I was talking to him, and I said, listen, I asked him, I go, what is your number one biggest growth market opportunity challenge that currently the streamer is facing? And he said that there's a country in Asia that they've been trying to crack, they've been really struggling with. I said, okay, I want you to raise your hand, I want you to go to your bosses, and I want you to volunteer to go to that country. Go for a year, go for 2 years. Tell them that you're going to go there, work with the team, figure it out. Sure enough, he did. And right now he's in the process of potentially going out there and working out the details of this expat agreement. So it's those kinds of things that you want to be able to go do, because if that becomes successful for him, he becomes that go-to guy and say, look, he or she's going to be super reliable to go after and go solve these problems. So that's what you want to do.
I love it. I love it so much. And it's a lot of what I talk about in this podcast. One of my favorite things that I say is that failure is feedback. I think that most of the time, the people that get ahead in life are the ones that are eager to get ahead, the ones that are raising their hand, knowing that they're going to fail. And it's likely they may look stupid. They may look like the person that maybe isn't ready, but the ones that get ahead are the ones that start. Right. And I think that the biggest failure is failing to try to begin with. So if you're able to adapt and everything's figure outable, I believe, you're going to learn along the way. But if you don't try at all, you're not going to get anywhere. I'm curious, what are the less obvious reasons that you found success in business and in life?
Wow, less obvious reasons. Timing usually works. You got to be in the right place at the right time. I was in a business where timing was bad. It was right. It was the right solution at the wrong time. I think essentially it was like an Etsy type business, and we had launched it probably 4 years, 5 years too soon. And now you look at Etsy, and it's basically the same concept and same idea. So obviously timing is a big one. Your ability to pivot, when you first launch, understand and realize that no matter, any new idea you come up with, it's probably going to take twice as long and cost twice as much. So if you've got an idea, if you're going to fund a new business, if you're going to launch a new product, it's going to cost you $100,000. It's going to take you 6 months. I'm telling you, it's going to cost you $200,000. It's going to take you a year, right? But then there's also, it's also making sure you surround yourself with the best possible people. And sometimes human nature gets in the way of that because you get close to people. And so you want to be able to make sure you surround yourself with really amazing people, really, really amazing talent, and make sure they have the tools to be successful. So I think some of those are the things that are probably the less obvious things, but timing is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's something very underrated. We don't really take into account. I think that's probably why you think that Gen Z and this next generation is going to have such a big impact because of everything that's happened. It's the time to make it happen. I know that you speak a lot about being not the smartest person in the room, which I believe wholeheartedly in. And it kind of goes back and forth with what you said there like a minute ago about just being eager to kind of go after it and take on the biggest project that you can. You have over 180 rules. And in the book, you only incorporated 30. I'm curious why you only put 30 in, and then what do you believe is the most essential out of all of them?
Well, first of all, it's a nice little social media way to have all these little rules and feel somewhat relevant. Got to remember, I'm 55 years old. How old are you? Like 25? I mean,
19.
So you're 19. Well, you got 19 years old. So you're younger than my sons. And so, look, the total number of rules that were recorded are like around 234, 235.
Yeah.
I only put 30 in there because you don't want the book to be too long. Number one. But number two is because, the idea there was to kind of be a hook to be able to come to my Instagram, check out the reels, go on my TikTok or whatever the case might be and go check it out. But there's that. But I mean, look, these are not, this is not saying that these are 250 rules or roughly 250 rules that you have to follow all of them, right? These are more lessons, ideas, concepts, right? I'll give you a couple of them. I mean, these are not any particular ones. The one, I did one yesterday, they got a lot of feedback. And that was at the end of the day, I'm advocating and I'm pontificating on this concept of enlightened leadership, right? I know we'll talk about that. I'm sure we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But enlightened leadership is essentially the next generation of servant leadership, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But enlightened leadership says CEOs need to look within. You need to figure out, not only need to figure out how to be successful with your employees, their internal customer, within the walls of the business, is how can you be successful with your employees outside the walls of the business as well. And there are 4 core areas where Gen Z and Millennial really want help and focus on from their leadership teams outside the walls of the business. And I call it the Jedi. And I call it the Jedi because I'm a Star Wars nerd and my dog's name is Chewie. And, I was 10 years old when Star Wars came out. And so, the Jedi stands for justice, environment, diversity, inclusion. So that was my rule yesterday, which was focus on the Jedi, justice, environment, diversity, inclusion. And that one probably got more feedback. I got more feedback on that one yesterday than I did probably in the previous couple of weeks. So, so it just depends on which ones resonate. I think one of my favorite ones, though, is hire people smarter than you, give them the tools to do their job, and then get out of their way. And that is the hardest thing for a leader to do. And I'm telling you guys right now, it's going to be the hardest thing for a Gen X leader that you work for to do, a Boomer leader to do. I mean, they get it in concept, right? But, it's just human nature. It takes time. And so they're going to want to be figuring out how to be, trustworthy in that process. And so I think that those are a couple of examples, right? Another one, there's a couple of simple ones, right? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. It's as simple as that, right? I mean, you think about your podcast, right? If you can't measure how many downloads you're getting, if you can't measure, your whatever the performance is, how are you going to manage to affect change, to adapt the podcast, to maybe pivot to something else, right? So it's those kinds of things or examples or life lessons or business lessons that I try to showcase.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of every chapter too, you have those really intentional questions that you have, right? Like you bring them through the story in the beginning, you kind of bring it through the entire chapter, and then you have the questions at the end to be intentional about it, right? Like we can't, no matter how important or how much information a book can have, if you're not implementing it, then there's really nothing that you can gain from it. Because information is nothing without implementation from it. I know that 75% of employees struggle with mental health, and this is from the book. You opened up more days for wellness without cutting out vacation. I'm curious for you, what practices do you have to take care of yourself, knowing that a leader really can't show up as best if they're not showing up for themselves first?
Yeah, no. So there's 3 things that I do. Number one is I read and write quite a bit. So I wrote the book, but then I also wrote a movie screenplay, which I just sold. And then I just completed my second movie screenplay, and it's right now with the script doctor who's kind of doctoring it up and kind of going through it. So I do that. I like to read a lot. I'm a big, fiction, reader, and I just finished Project Hail Mary by the guy that wrote The Martian, which was a lot of fun. And I also just got David Goggins' new book. So great. I like that. Which what's it called?
Never Finished, I think.
Never Finished. Yeah, and so I just got that in audiobook. So I work out. It's actually started a new routine next week. But I work out. I'm going to start picking up yoga. I try to meditate a little bit every day. I really try to enjoy, the other things. I take time to to support, to make sure I follow up about the Lakers, whatever, right? Like right now, I'm learning everything I can about Chat GPT and DALL-E, right? Just because I feel like I need to know those types of things, right? I walk my dog all the time, so it's like, and I'm never satisfied. I'm always trying new things. Like I have a list of things this year that I want to accomplish, right? I have everything on there from learn how to make a really great cappuccino all the way to go skydiving, right? I've got on here, take salsa or tango lessons. What else do I have on my list of things that I want to do this year? I've got this little list of things that I kind of want to accomplish this year, right? It's like I want to take an iPhone photography class. I want to do a TED Talk this year. I do some executive coaching, so I'm looking to add 2 or 3 more executive clients to my executive coaching business. Which, if anybody needs, they can reach out to me anytime. So I got my little list of things, and then I keep myself busy, and that's great.
Yeah, I love it, and it really shows. It's funny when you put it into perspective. A lot of people can look at you, right? For example, like you've already accomplished so much in your life, and just you speaking about all the things that you want to do continuously moving forward. It kind of reminds you that like life isn't for the destination, but more so the learning process of it. I think that's what. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, look, James, no one's promised tomorrow.
Yep.
Right. When COVID hit, no one could realize and figure out that so many people potentially could pass away,
Yeah.
all over the world, right? No one knew the disruption that it could bring. No one's promised tomorrow. I mean, Kobe died. With his daughter, you're just not promised tomorrow. And so just try to maximize every single day that you have. Embrace whatever you have today and go try to be the best version of yourself and leave this world a better place. So I tell my sons, I go, look, I don't care what you do, just try to leave the world a little bit a better place than when you came in. That's it. And just focus on that. And if ever you did that, then you become more and more enlightened. That's ultimately the whole concept of enlightened leadership. So.
You're literally speaking before I even like exactly what I was just going to say there, right? It's exactly what an enlightened leader is. I'm curious, knowing that where you are today, like I said, you've accomplished so much. I'm curious what you wish you had, what skill, habit, or trait, or whatever that may be, you wish that you developed earlier in your life.
Yeah, I just worked early on, right? I didn't really have anybody telling me what I'm telling you guys, which is find that right balance. And I spew that word balance all the time to my sons, which is, you've got to really find that balance between business, family, personal. And a lot of times people, if they find that balance, it's usually business and family, and they forget about personal. And I really did not put a lot of effort and focus on me personally. It wasn't until COVID that I really started focusing on myself and making myself a priority. And, had I done that, I think early on, I'm sure I still would have gotten where I am, but I think I would have done it in a lot less stressful, healthier manner, right? And so, you can have everything in life. You can have all the money you want. You can have as many TikTok followers or Instagram followers as you want. But if you don't have your health, you're not going to have anything. And so, so that's kind of where we are with that right now.
I love that. And I think that's really important to say, especially for my audience. It's something that I preach on a whole lot as well. I think that especially as a young entrepreneur, like that internal pressure that you have to always be working, to always move forward, to always be striving towards something is something really difficult to let go of and to manage. Like you said there, it's having that balance between both. And there's a question from, I think it's from James Clear, that I love, and I've been really asking myself more frequently. I think it might align with even asking you it is, like, it's what are you optimizing for? Like, so much we're trying to strive, we're trying to move forward, but like, what are you trying to optimize for? Are you trying to optimize for growth? Are you trying to optimize for enjoyment? I mean, where you are today, what's your definition of success, and where you are, what are you trying to optimize for now?
Yeah, to me, that's a great question, and I've heard that question before, and I kind of look at it a little bit different. Like, so you're familiar with Simon Sinek, right?
Of course, start with why.
And he's got that book, Start With Why. To me, James's question and Simon's questions are the same. What's your why, and what are you optimizing for? Are essentially the same thing. And to me, what I'm optimizing for, and what my why is, to do everything I can to honor other people's dreams. Look, it's because, at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in karma, right? And so And I'm a big believer, the more you put out in the world, you'll get back exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's what can I do to honor other people's dreams? And so that's really what I'm optimizing for. What I'm optimizing for is not myself. What I'm optimizing for is to do everything I can to support and help others be successful. Because if they're being successful, it's going to come back to me.
Yeah, it's very true. It's one of my favorite, kind of goes back to one of my favorite quotes is, you're going to get what you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want in life.
Yep.
And that belief, like always striving towards that, trying to help other people, it's going to allow you to live a life in a better place. I mean, knowing that this book is a lot about leadership, let's say that some of my audience maybe is in a leadership position, they may be in an employee position. What do you think they can do to benefit from this book, and how can they?
Well, look, first of all, you first got to understand the concept of enlightened leadership, right?
Yeah.
And enlightened leadership builds off of this concept of servant leadership. As a Gen Xer, I kind of grew up in this world where where I was taught servant leadership, and servant leadership says, "Hey, James, what can I do to help you be successful?" But that question is really, what can I do to help you be successful within the walls of the business, from 9 to 5? Enlightened leadership takes it one step further. Enlightened leadership says servant leadership is the foundation, but to build on top of that, because of what's happening in the world right now, with James, what can I do to help you be successful outside the walls of the business? Mm-hmm. Right? If you think about how work is changing, there's more power in my iPhone than there is in the entire moon mission from the 60s.
Yeah.
Right?
But,
and so, and think about it. I can now I can do 95%. I can manage 95% of my company just on my phone from anywhere in the world. I could be in Lake Como. I could be in India. I could be in the Maldives, wherever. I could be in Argentina. Doesn't matter. I mean, I can manage a company from anywhere in the world. And that means my employees can work from anywhere in the world. That means my employees can work remote. That means, do I care if the job gets done at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. as long as the job gets done? Like, my company has gone fully remote. And a lot of people, I have some of my investors and board members you sure you really want to do that? And I'm like, look, at the end of the day, my employees tell me? My employees love it, because to what they tell me is that they get 2 hours of their day back. They don't have to get up as early. They can go work out. They don't have to worry about putting on makeup if you're a woman. You have to sit in traffic or whatever the case might be, right? And so they have that. And enlightened leadership recognizes that. So that's going to help you be successful outside the walls of the business, right? The other idea of enlightened leadership is essentially saying, look, I'm going to help you focus on that Jedi that we talked about. So one of the things that we do in the company is not only do we offer the 2 wellness days a year, which mental wellness days, we offer every election day. Every election day in November, people get a pay day off to go vote in my company. So the one we just had in November, I shut the whole company down for a day. People went to go vote. Now, if they voted by mail, great. I tell them, go be a poll worker. Go volunteer in your community. You don't want to do that? Great. Go watch a movie with your kids. You don't want to do that? Then just take a mental wellness day for yourself and make it another mental wellness day, right? The point is, at the end of the day, is that enlightened leadership says, hey, James, I care about you. I want you to be successful, but I also care about you when you go home. And so, because the more I can provide value to you outside the walls of the business, the more you're going to stay with me at the organization, the less attrition I'm going to have, the less I have to worry about replacing you, whatever the case might be, is building that culture. And so that's ultimately the idea of enlightened leadership.
Yeah, I'm grateful that you bring that up too, because like you said a minute ago, a lot of what has brought a part to your success is timing, right? And I think in the timing that we're in the world today, that is becoming more of a standard, and I believe it should be. And you bringing that up now, there's not another book that I can think of that really represents that kind of mindset to the world. And you being able to bring that is going to help lead other people into taking that mindset on as well. Where did you take that mindset on, and how did you adapt it into your company today?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the elements of enlightened leadership have been in the company since the day I started here at this company, since I started to run this business. And so, as I mentioned, we're doing the paid day off to go vote. We're doing the mental wellness days. We are, we take a small percentage of our profits and we support, charities and nonprofits all around the country. A couple of years ago we supported Operation Smile. That was helping people that cleft palate issue, right? Because those people get ostracized in their communities, and sometimes they commit suicide or they get killed, or whatever the case might be. And so, so we did that. We donated over a couple of years. We donated almost $40,000 there.
Yeah.
This last year, we've been supporting in South Los Angeles, in the San Pedro area, which is a suburb of Los Angeles, a nonprofit called Rainbow Services, where they are a leader in domestic violence and support, right? Helping people who've gone through domestic violence, helping them find new lives and support outside of the life that they were living. And that's where typically it's women and kids who we support. We are supporting a high school that's on the border of the Mexico-Arizona border this year, where we're going to help, where we are going to help promote scholarships for 3 kids, to help them go to college, because they're coming from really, challenged areas. And so those are things that we're doing to try to make sure we're finding ways to be able to give back to our communities, at the same time finding ways to be able to provide the right tools and success and metrics we can for our employees as well. So those are just small examples of things that we're doing, that we have been doing here at the organization.
I love it. And it's, again, like you said, you brought up karma a little bit ago, and it's like there's so much good that's going to come right back to you for all of the good that you're bringing into the world. And like you said, this book may have been for you, but in the same sense, I'm so grateful that you brought it up and you've created it, because it's going to help so many other people take on that mindset as well. Like you said, it's what we're bringing into the world, and you encapsulating that into a book and kind of being like a representation of that, and with your company as well. It's able to expand people's mindsets past what we've been taught for so long. And I think that that's where change starts to happen, right? It's the timing of it happening. I'm curious, knowing that you've exited 3 different companies, you've wrote a book, you have your company going on right now. What's the lesson that took you the longest to learn?
Wow. That's a really good question. I don't know if I could really kind of point to one particular lesson. I think early on in my career, I think building, so there are 5 key pillars of enlightened leadership, and they're gratitude, resilience, empathy, accountability, and transparency. I think that last one, transparency, is probably the one that was probably the hardest lesson to learn. Right? Of the 5, it's the hardest one to implement, because people say, "Well, why didn't you pick trust? How come that T?" Because if you take every letter of those 5 words, it spells great. Ultimately, that's the whole title of the book, Chase Greatness. And it basically becomes my North Star. So again, it's gratitude, resilience, empathy, accountability, and transparency. But people say, "Well, why wasn't that? Why transparency, not trust?" And I just said, "Look, it was trust in the beginning." But then I changed it to transparency, because I don't think you can have trust unless you're fully transparent. And what that meant was, I'll give you an example. Like when COVID hit, I couldn't hide the fact that we lost 55% of our business overnight.
Yeah.
People are going to know, right? I wasn't going to sugarcoat the fact that there were going to be layoffs, there were going to be pay cuts, there was going to be all these issues. But I wanted them to know that we had a plan. In order for them to trust me, I needed to be transparent with them first. I needed them to buy into what we're going to do. So that means I had to open the kimono. And I think a lot of times leaders are a little leery on how much they want to really share with their teams. And I guess what I'm here to say is, share as much as you want, but you're going to be surprised by the more transparent you are, the more buy-in you're going to get, and the more successful you're going to be.
I really love that. I think that you changing that to transparency instead of trust, like exactly as you said there, there's no trust without transparency. I really love that perspective. There's one last question that I ask every single person that comes on the show, and I think it's really important to really bring humility into this perspective of, like, you have so much success, and I think a lot of people can look at that and just look at that like it's an entire mountain that they have to like really take on. I'm curious, what belief are you currently unlearning in life right now?
So repeat the question. What belief am I what?
What belief are you currently unlearning in life right now?
Unlearning. Wow. James, a good question, man. I'll be honest with you, I haven't really thought about it. What belief am I unlearning? I think as much as I jump up and down and I say, don't be the smartest person in the room. Sometimes what happens is that my teams will sometimes wait for me to answer.
Yeah.
And as much as I try to encourage them to be more proactive, it's really hard for them because of my resume. So, and sometimes my ego can get in the way with those kinds of things, right? Mm-hmm. And so constantly remembering that I've gotten to a level where others haven't yet means I have to be able to check myself at the door before I walk in and really make sure I really create more of a safe space environment for these people to really voice their concerns, their ideas, and their opinions. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, probably the constant battle I constantly face. I'll give you an example, a perfect example. ChatGPT, right? I'm sure all your listeners right now know about DALL-E and ChatGPT and all these things, right? To me, I think it's gonna completely change the world, 100%.
Definitely.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But in my team, of my 8 direct reports, of my management team, I am constantly learning all about it, and they're slow to catch up. Yeah. And I have to remember that they're also running the day-to-day businesses, right? So allowing me to go do what I do, right? So I can't get frustrated with that. So that's a small example, right? So I mean, they're coming along, but they still have to run the business. And so they can't just drop everything they're doing and go dive into ChatGPT tomorrow. So they have to be able to find ways. It's easy for me to be the idea guy. They have to go execute, so I have to be careful how much of an idea guy I am.
Right. And it goes back to that transparency, being able to be transparent and talk about all the things that are possible and bring all those ideas in while things are being implemented already. It's a lot to carry, but as a leader, you're able to really navigate that, and you're doing a great job at it. For those that want to find you, where can they find you, Rajeev, outside of the book, of course?
Well, look, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. It's easy to find me on LinkedIn. On Instagram, my handle is @the Rajeev Kapur. Mm-hmm. If they really want to find me, I'm sure they can reach out to you, and they can. You have my email address, and you can make an email introduction. So that's another great way of getting to know me. But usually there's that. I mean, I don't really use Twitter all that much, and I'm on Facebook, but I don't think your audience is on Facebook. And I'm on TikTok. It's the same at the Rajeev Kapur. I'm happy to say I've got 400 followers, so that's kind of exciting for me. But anyways, but that's I mean, I'm around. I mean, people can find me. I don't hide.
Awesome, man. I'm truly grateful to have you on the show. I think the audience got a lot of value from this episode, and thank you for coming on the show, man. I'm truly grateful for you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, my honor. Thanks for having me, and I wish you nothing but success, and hope all your listeners have a great year.
Absolutely. Thank you.